Don't drive angry. Don't drive angry. And number 58 on the list is Groundhog Day. Welcome to Long Play Video. Well, welcome into Long Play Video. It's 10 o'clock. We've had a busy day. This is the perfect time for this movie. But just before we close the shop, we'll actually invite a guest in or
Yeah.
guest back to come and watch the film with us. Oh, here she is now.
Hi, nice to see you again.
Hey,
Welcome back.
Natalie.
Welcome back to the store.
Thanks for having
Yeah.
me. I do
Uh,
come bringing a return. I've got The Fly, Cronenberg's The Fly.
Ooh,
Really,
interesting.
I did see that one before, I have to say. I do tend to go back to old favorites, but
Yeah.
I had recently seen a list of, it was like a sort of countdown list of 101 greatest horror movies of all time or something. And there were a lot
Mm.
on there that was sort of new at the time because of their special effects, on-camera special effects.
Yes.
So lots of
Yeah.
zombie films where like things are being bitten off and all that sort of thing. And
Yeah.
The Fly came on there. So I fancied rewatching it, and the special effects actually won an Oscar.
Yeah.
And
They were very impressive, weren't they? When
they
it
were
came, it
really
must, especially
impressive.
when it came out. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And the guy, I forget his name, which is really poor of me, but he was top billing at the end credits. The guy
Jeff
that created,
Goldblum.
no, he did the special effects. He was at
Oh,
the top because
wow.
yeah.
he was above Jeff. They
He
they
was
were just
above
Wow.
like,
Jeff.
Wow.
that's
It is
probably
rare
fair.
to get above Jeff, so you're doing
Exactly.
well. Yeah.
But
Tall
yeah, it's
guy.
great. It's a great movie, and it's straight
Yes,
in
it's a good
there. There's no
movie.
like build up. You're just straight in. He's in there with the fly.
Oh, yeah. I haven't seen that for
He's in there
ages.
with the fly.
With the fly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, we really do need a system where we're not just relying on people telling us what videos they're bringing back to the store. Maybe we need to, when we're lending them out, we need to know what people are bringing back. But no, thank you
Yeah.
very much. That will
You're
go in our
welcome.
horror section that you
Yeah,
you are,
Yeah.
are pretty much the only
I'm
person who
solely
goes
building
into.
up, am I?
Yeah. Yeah. When Natalie stand. Yeah.
Great.
And yeah, strangely enough, this is probably a weird double feature to go with the fly. But at number 58, we have Groundhog Day, and we
Oh.
invited you in to
So
watch
what was
this.
that,
For,
Andy?
are you going to do this the entire pod?
Oh, yes.
We invited you in to watch it for a very special reason, and that is
Yeah.
Yes.
because, much like us, you like a Twitter spat, and
Yeah.
I'm not a huge Bill Murray fan, which is,
not a
I
Ooh,
Bill
know,
Murray fan.
that's why.
controversial.
I know. Well, it's difficult because having said that, I love Scrooged. So
Yes. My favorite
maybe,
Christmas movie.
yeah, maybe I'm going to grow into Bill Murray. I just remember his movies being on either TV or maybe my sister's watching Bill Murray movies and always just being a bit like, this is not that funny. And then I
Yeah.
happened to watch Scrooged a few years ago, well, 5 or 6 years ago. And now it's
Yeah.
like the Christmas movie I love to watch. So
Yeah.
maybe my tastes have changed.
Oh,
Well,
maybe. So maybe this
we
might help.
also yeah we're fine with not liking someone and then ending up actually you haven't seen any of their movies and it's just one particular movie that you don't like. We've had that on the pod in the
Oh, have
past. So.
you?
Who's done that? No one's done that.
The great Tom Hanks debate. Okay, well, so you've never seen Groundhog Day because
No.
obviously Bill Murray is.
Yeah.
I mean, it is
The
a Bill Murray
key.
film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I again, it was one of those films that was on TV a lot at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about it to know if it was a sort of on at Christmas, but not a Christmas film, or that sort of thing that just
Yeah.
sort of was generated a lot at those like certain periods in time. So I've seen bits of it, but not enough to sort of piece together if there's some sort of
Yeah.
subplot. I know that he keeps waking up on the same day. The
Yeah.
end. Like that's all I know.
Yeah.
So
That's up.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But Andrew, do you remember the first time you saw the movie? Was it a
No,
TV movie that you saw?
yeah, I think it must have been on the TV. I'm not sure that it's yeah, I was thinking about how much of
Mm.
a family movie it is. and
Would you
whether
say?
I'd watch it. But I mean, there's a lot of suicide
Oh,
because he repeatedly tries to kill himself at one
I
stage.
Mm.
see.
No spoilers,
Oh,
or a little bit
I
of
think
spoilers. Yeah,
there's some huge
okay, yeah.
spoilers in there, actually, Andy. I think
But
you've
this
just
is the
ruined
thing,
part of the
like,
film.
but everyone knows Groundhog Day, right?
Yeah.
Groundhog
Yeah,
Day is like, I mean, is there any other film that is so much
yeah,
in the culture that like it's
yeah,
become its own noun? You
Mm.
yeah,
would say this is really Groundhog Day. Obviously, a lot of people used it during COVID to
yeah,
kind of describe their days. And as far as
yeah.
kind of cultural, not even relevance, but like yeah, just how much it's in the culture, using a
Mm,
film as a
yeah,
as a perfect noun that even if you haven't seen it, you would know what it means
Yeah.
is is pretty
yeah,
remarkable.
Yeah, it is
yeah,
definitely. Yeah.
yeah. It's unbelievable, isn't it? And it's introduced me to an animal that I didn't know existed. So that's that's good as well.
As
Yeah,
well, I mean, the entire Groundhog Day like thing about it seeing its shadow and it predicting weather and stuff.
yeah.
No one had any idea about that, right? So
You are
Spoiler.
smashing spoilers out left, right, and centre, Andy. What is going on? Is it too early for you? What has happened?
I can't
You are
remember which day
you
we're
are
on.
you're literally ruining this entire film for Natalie. You just have
But
a picture of Bill Murray in the background, and that would be it.
I've got my Bill Murray mask. No, but now it's like it's on TV. You'll
Yeah.
hear about it on the news and and on the
On
weather
the news, what's
every
happened to you?
February.
Where do you live?
Do you not do they not have it down there? Do they not talk about? I mean,
No.
I suppose it's the opposite for you, isn't it? It's like, oh well, how long's summer going to be? So
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, when will winter arrive? Yeah,
no, they'll have it. They'll have honestly on like the BBC. They will now on Groundhog Day. They will say whether he's seen his shadow or not.
oh my
Like
God, I'm gonna have to
they
come
will
back and sort
report
this
on it.
country out. What has happened?
Oh, it'll be fine now. Now,
Yeah.
now that Starmer's in,
Okay.
it'll be fine.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they'll get this Groundhog Day nonsense off the TV. But
Yeah.
no, so it's so it definitely is there. How
Yeah.
about you, Kev? Like your relationship to the film and Bill Murray. I imagine you're a Bill
Yeah.
Murray fan.
I am a Bill Murray fan. Yeah. I mean, I'm not like I love him. I'd watch every film with him. But when he's in a film, I'm like, oh yeah, is this probably going to be good? Yeah. I mean, Groundhog Day, I think is one of his best because he kind of, I think to your point, Nancy, he's an interesting character. His humor's sort of subtle and often it's very sarcastic and
Yeah.
a bit more like that sort of edgy side, and so he's more like he comes from like a grumpy perspective and he's more being sarcastic with people. Well, his character in this film is perfect for that, so I think that's why it works so well for him in this film. And then you obviously have to see, as Andy's obviously given a few spoilers away, but yeah, he's his day changes and his character changes because of the things that happen to him. So I think for me, that's one of the great things and why you can just keep coming back to this film. And obviously, we've said that, things sort of get repeated. And that's the thing, you can watch it again and again and still see little things that you missed the
Yeah.
previous time you watched it. And I think that's why you can actually go through and watch it and watch it. They actually did this here in Australia. It's actually a UK radio DJ, Christian O'Connell. He's now out here. And
Oh, we
he did
rejected him.
this.
I remember.
Yeah, he got ejected from the UK. He did this challenge on the radio where people had to go and watch a film non-stop for I think it was 48 hours they did in the end. And because they were absolute horrific, terrible people, they also made the film Groundhog Day. So you were repeating a film continuously that repeats in itself. So, I mean,
Wow. That's
How much were
yeah.
insane.
you winning if you managed
Yeah.
to do it?
Yeah.
Just I don't
I,
know.
thi- I mean, it's not a lot. It wasn't enough to be
Not
doing
enough.
it. I think
A
definitely not enough.
DVD of
Yeah.
Groundhog Day.
Yeah. But can you imagine? Yeah. I can't watch it anymore. But I think that's why, just getting back to the point of it, is that it is very watchable and it is very rewatchable as well. Even if you have already seen it and you've seen it many times, you can watch it again and still enjoy it. And I think that's one of the great things about this film. There's so many little nuances that you miss that you can just watch again. And it's just such a nice, although there are some dark themes and some themes to think about in it, I think that on the whole, it's just like a really nice movie, you know, and it's set in a really good place. I think the character for Bill Murray is perfect. That's why his character really works, and obviously the side characters are good as well.
I
But
mean, you've
yeah,
kind
that's
of
kind of
just
me.
described Scrooged to me.
Yes, it is. You are right. Yeah, he plays the same character in Scrooge,
Similar
doesn't he?
sort of
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
and it's funny as well you say that, because when I think of Bill Murray's humor, and I'm basing this on very little movies, very few movies,
yeah,
obviously, is that I do think of his humor as like quite dry, quite
yeah.
sarcastic, which
Mm,
in my mind are quite British,
yeah,
like
yeah.
humor
Traits.
sensibilities. Like I wouldn't have described many American comedies that way. So I do
Yeah,
find it strange when I think of him that I'm so like his humor doesn't suit me, but then it
yeah,
obviously does in Scrooged, and it's familiar, that sort of dry comedy. So maybe I just need to shut up and watch it.
yeah. It's right. Like as Andy was alluding to earlier, we've all been there. Like sometimes we have to give these actors a second chance,
Yeah.
and you know, we'll see how they go. Obviously, I got a personalized letter when I did it. I'm sure you'll get the same from Bill Murray, so
Right.
it'll be good.
I mean, he is known for just turning up and doing things like that. But yeah,
Yeah,
I
true.
think that I mean this is just the concept of it is right up there. Right? We talked previously about like having like one of the just greatest plot devices in a film. I think it was BMX Bandits
Yeah,
that we did. No, it was
these are on a
no, it
par. Yeah,
was, no, it was Limitless. And like, yeah,
Mm,
just how good that plot device is, and that's the same
yeah,
for this. Like, this is just, I mean, yeah,
yeah,
it is like right up there as far as plot devices are concerned, and that's why I think everyone knows the film, even if they haven't seen it. But then
yeah,
I think there's a lot of depth to it because of the plot
yeah,
device, maybe. But
yeah.
like, yeah, I think like it's funny if you look online for anything about this film, like there is sort of philosophical essays, and I think
Mm,
maybe each major religion has tried to claim it as a parable for its own at different points. And yeah, on the basis, I think on the surface, it is just an entertaining, sort of funny, sort of good film. And then you can keep thinking about it and keep thinking about it, which is why we've done it late at night, because this is, I think, the type of film that I'm sure students at the time would stay up
yeah,
until 3 a.m. arguing about what the
yeah,
significance of it was. And I think some of that's on purpose, and maybe some of that is just because there's a few bits that are a bit vague. But yeah, because of that, I think it's just a great film to sort of to watch and to think about, because you can talk about it for
yeah,
days and just keep repeating
yeah.
Okay.
yourself. So this would
So
be perfect for
yeah,
you, Kev.
yeah, it is perfect. This is my ideal film because I can actually remember scenes. So this is great. But yeah, so Natalie, if you've never seen it, like to Andy's point, obviously it becomes such a cultural sort of phenomenon.
Mm.
Do people you know talk to you, have spoke to you about it, and they that can't believe you've not seen it, or like, or do people know you've got a hatred of Bill Murray and don't even bring it up?
Don't mention Bill Murray.
Yeah, don't
I
mention BM.
I don't think so. I mean, I think I've got quite a sort of close circle around me of people who absolutely love films. So I
Yeah,
think between us, we've either seen everything, or we've seen, or we've not seen, the most, like Titanic or something, one of the biggest films of all
yeah,
time. It's one of those, like, there's quite big disparities, I think, sometimes with film lovers, where like you've just decided that you
yeah,
don't want to see a film and you'll never
yeah,
watch it, and they can be the biggest films of all time. So I think for me, it was just, I knew Groundhog Day was a comedy and it was really popular, and I just
yeah.
pre-decided that I didn't want to watch it. But no, I don't think anyone's surprised. Again, I think because it was sort of a little bit not before my time, but like I was quite young when it
Yeah.
came
Yeah.
out. So I think it just sort of passed me by and I never really went back to watch it. So I don't think anyone would be sort of super surprised.
Yeah.
And sorry, just like
Well,
going
yeah.
back to my hatred of Bill Murray, I but the only other film I've got
Yeah.
Scrooged and I've got Lost in Translation, which I hated. So I
Yeah.
think that's another thing for me. It's a bit like,
Yeah.
what are his older movies more like? And I think
Yeah.
in my head, it's like, well, if they're like Lost in Translation, then I don't want to watch
Yeah.
it. But I think that was probably a more sort of mature movie of his that he
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think anyone would be that sort of surprised. It just sort of passed me by. But yeah, I never picked it up.
God. I wonder if after this you're going to go on a big Bill Murray splurge and
I mean,
just like
maybe.
and just like a marathon of Bill Murray movies. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
maybe.
know what you mean though. Like the Lost in Translation, I'm sort of a bit on that one. I feel like
Mm,
Cinema Tank, it like was nice. It was a nice film, but I was like, I don't know, did people like it more than they should have done? I feel like there was a bit more hype in than it was, and I think Bill Murray's okay in it, but for me, that's not where I remember him as his best. You know, I think
yeah,
he's better in the comedy roles,
yeah,
and that's why, yeah, like you said, Scrooged, and I think these are two like really good examples of where he's that perfect kind of role. They make him sort of a bit of a grumpy person, which I think works really well to his, like you said, his dry sense of humor.
yeah.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, my husband also hates Bill Murray, but he loves Lost in
Oh
Translation.
wow! So
So
he
yeah,
likes
go
new Bill
figure.
Murray, not
I
old Bill
guess.
Murray.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird,
Wow,
isn't it?
what a household this
I
is!
This
know.
is
Wow.
this is Tom all over
Fans.
again. I don't,
Yeah, I
it's,
know. Very opinionated.
but I think
Who knew
yeah,
this? There would be so much controversy in this podcast. It's mad.
well, because I think does almost become a bit of a parody of himself, doesn't he? And that the kind of the
Mm,
grumpy Bill Murray persona. Then he also plays himself in a few different movies, and then that
yeah,
yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know, sort of yeah, questions the whole thing. But
yeah,
actually, I mean, yeah, interesting from a sort of career retrospective because obviously, like Wes Anderson being in all the Wes Anderson films is actually like the
mm,
majority of his hits in the
Yeah.
last 20 years, frankly. Like
yeah,
he's not had that many yeah kind of big films like yeah Lost in
yeah,
Translation kind of,
Mm.
but that was 2003. So yeah, no, I get it. I think it's very easy for it to be kind of a bit of a shtick that okay, yeah, it's grumpy Bill Murray and yeah, he's just
yeah,
almost like a grumpy old man, which he seems to have been for the last 40 years. And I think that's the nice thing about this film is that evolution of the character, because I think kind of in a lot of the films it's also he can be a bit like yeah, one hit of just like okay, yeah, you know, he's grumpy and that's funny, but like
yeah,
it's like
Yeah.
almost sort of so what? And the thing is,
yeah,
I mean, obviously we'll have the connotations with Ghostbusters, and that was really
yeah,
where we kind of knew him from.
Yeah.
Yeah, sort of not really sort of yeah knowing at the time because it was different times, like all of the you know all of the stuff he'd done in the US to sort of get there and sort of be the comedian and Saturday Night Live
yeah.
and stuff like that. And I never really got into Caddyshack, I think,
No,
which was his sort of his big break because yeah, I
yeah. He
just think
plays a
it's
strange character in Caddyshack, isn't it? It's very
yeah.
weird.
And I think yeah, there's just yeah, I never really sort of yeah liked Caddyshack or like those humor. I mean,
Yeah.
it's very sort of yeah, Weekend at Bernie's, not all
Whoa,
of
whoa,
those,
whoa,
isn't
whoa, whoa. Let's just pull that back a step. Caddyshack's not the same as Weekend at Bernie's.
it?
Let's not
So,
start on Andrew McCarthy. Yeah.
but obviously we have playing alongside him Andy McDowell, who obviously I'm sure we're all big
Yeah.
fans of
Yeah, yeah.
in her
Yeah.
two movie career.
Yeah. 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 This and the other film that we shouldn't name. Yeah. I think she's good in this, but her character's not really like overdeveloped, is it really? I mean, most of
No,
the film really, I mean, we won't go into huge spoilers, but most of the film is really him, isn't it? So the other characters are really sort of side characters and it's his journey. So she's good in it, but I don't think her character's fleshed out too much, is it?
no. I mean, it's yeah, it's
Yeah.
played for the plot of the film and
Yeah.
everything else.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very
Yeah.
much Bill Murray, and indeed, it's actually his highest rated film on
Oh,
IMDb.
interesting.
So
Good times.
this is like yeah, this should be the best Bill Murray film if that's
Okay.
Wow. This is
I
higher than Lost in Translation.
yeah, it is yeah,
Really interesting.
yeah,
There
yeah,
you go. Fans, who knew?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But then well, Ghostbusters is actually like yeah the
Yeah.
next one, the classic.
Ah,
So
yeah. Ghostbusters is great.
yeah, now he
Yeah.
turns up in another Ghostbusters all
Yeah,
the
now he
time
just
in
picks
in
up
the
a
background.
paycheck. Yeah. You're like, please.
You would,
It's
wouldn't
like,
you?
yeah, I mean, yeah, you totally would, right? Why don't if someone asks you to still be in it, you'd be like, yeah, of course it will be. But yeah, please, could they just stop putting these old actors into these new films? Star Wars, Ghostbusters, whoever, MCU, move on, start again.
Times have changed. Yeah. So yeah, no, I think it's going to be super interesting. Like definitely, I
Yes.
think a film that if you haven't seen, you're kind of like, oh, okay, well, yeah, maybe I should see
Mm.
that, which is why we
Yeah.
invited you down. I did. Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. You'll either have like one note afterwards. You'll be like, yeah. Okay, or you'll be like, "Oh, that's really interesting." Like, and we'll,
Yeah.
we'll get into the how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm hopeful. If I like Scrooge, it sounds like it's similar style. So
Yeah,
maybe
Yeah.
I'm hopeful that I'll enjoy it.
Yeah.
yeah,
On the Bill Murray scale, it's definitely more Scrooge than Lost in Translation. So I
Perfect.
think
yes.
yeah,
I think
yes.
that's fair to say.
The well-known scale. Yeah.
Wait, most films is between
Yeah.
Scrooged and Lost in Translation.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we'll pop it on, and
Yeah.
we'll I have to do the prediction. This will be an interesting
Yeah.
one. So yeah,
I
go
feel
and
like maybe we should do a joint prediction. I'm
oh
interested. Yeah, I think I'm keen to see what I think Natalie might think of this as well.
Great.
yeah, okay. Well, yeah.
Mm.
Just go and get comfortable then, Natalie. Help yourself to gelato or a coffee,
Yeah.
and yeah, we'll speak after the break.
Great.
Not used to you coming over for this bit. This is
Yeah.
usually when I just wander off on my own, thinking.
What is this secret room? I can't believe I didn't know this existed in the shop. This is where you hide out when all the cleaning needs to be done.
With the lazy boy armchairs and the slushy machine. Have you never been in here before? Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is unbelievable. Mm.
What do you
Yeah.
think then? How do you think
Oh,
she'll what do you think she'll like it or
I think on the sliding scale from Lost in Translation to Scrooge, I think she will like it because also I think Natalie from our previous podcast is more cerebral, and I think she'll like the higher themes in this film. Like there is obviously just an amount of comedy that lays through it, but there are some deeper questions I think that it asks as well. So I think she'll like that. So I think she'll like this even though I feel that's going against the grade because she's openly said on the pod she doesn't like Bill Murray, and this is basically Bill Murray's film. So yeah, I
well,
don't know. What do you think?
well, we we had that with Philadelphia for you, so we're
That is
fine.
true.
There's definitely a
Yeah,
precedent. Yeah, no, I think she'll like it. I think she'll yeah maybe think that mm, sort of the main premise is a bit silly, but it's interesting as well. Obviously, as a horror fan, it's sort of interesting to sort of see because it does it does verge, I think, into the horror, and obviously we won't go into it
yeah,
until we've watched it and stuff. But like
yeah,
that's the thing; it does get quite dark at
yeah.
times.
It does.
So
Mm.
yeah, I think it is one of those films that I think the more you think about it, the deeper it gets. But like, how much are you going to think about it? I think
Yeah,
it's
and
one of those questions.
yeah, and I think it depends on your age as well. I think we said this, didn't we, with one of the other
Yeah,
films, is I think as you're older, I think you're right, you get different things from this and you look at the questions in deeper, different scenarios, like the deep questions in different ways. So I'm looking forward to watching it again now, because I haven't watched it for a number of years to
yeah,
see what I think now. But yeah, I think it is a much because I always remember it just being a silly, funny comedy film, but it is actually quite a deep film on a lot of levels. So I'm
yeah,
interested to
yeah.
watch it again now and see how it
And
goes.
like, yeah, character arc is more or less
Yeah,
exactly the same as Scrooged, right? So
yeah,
yeah,
it is.
like
Yeah,
it's yeah.
great news.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
and I think because he gets away from the grumpy Bill Murray sort of persona, then I think yeah, it
yeah,
sounded like that's what annoyed her
yeah.
so much.
The
So
character's set up for it, which I think in Scrooge and this, the
yeah,
character's set up like that,
yeah,
and then there's the redemption arc, right? He
yeah,
changes. So yeah,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
good.
yeah.
Well, there
Well,
we
I wonder
go.
what do you think her first word will be?
Thoughtful, I
Yeah,
think
okay,
I'm gonna go
yeah, I
for.
think I'd go interesting.
Yeah, okay.
We'll see now.
We
We'll
will.
yeah,
Let's put some money
let's
on this. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I bet you a slushy.
Yeah. Done.
And we'll see you after the jump.
underwhelming.
Ah,
Oh, I'm really sorry.
I don't. We weren't even expecting you to be whelmed, so to be underwhelmed.
I was, yeah, I was a bit underwhelmed. I think I was so excited about it being like Scrooged, but it didn't live up to the hype.
No, that's my fault. I bigged it up too much. I've been doing these too long with Andy, where you just you sell it in too hard at the beginning.
Yeah, yeah, it had moments where I was like, yes, and then I just, yeah, big sigh, I think.
Wow. Or is
Yeah.
it Bill
Wow.
Murray that you didn't like, or the film as a whole?
No,
Both.
I think it felt like there was like a few sort of plot holes that
Yeah.
weren't
Ooh.
like not even
Yeah.
holes like it doesn't make sense, but just a few things that weren't like
What,
fleshed out
like
enough.
like the day
Did it-
can't
did-
be
did you find it quite-
repeated?
Yeah, yeah, I found it quite repetitive. To be honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I think I'll probably answer it a bit more with some of the other things we talk about, but I think it
okay.
just felt a bit like,
Wow.
why this guy? Like I know, like it just.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, he's just kind of a grouchy, kind of
Yeah.
selfish, normal man.
Just explained exactly why he needs to
No,
go
I know,
through
but
it.
like everyone, do you know what I mean? That could be any
Yeah.
number of millions.
Well, we
men.
don't know how many people are currently going through
Well,
Groundhog
that's true,
Day.
I suppose.
There
That's
might be
true.
10,000 different white
That's
men
true.
who are all trying to.
I just think like he's not awful. Like he's kind
Yeah.
of mean or a bit selfish, but he's not like the worst guy in the world. He's just
Yeah,
like
yeah.
kind of harassed normal guy.
Yeah.
So it just felt a bit like I didn't know that he had like everyone has a lesson to learn, right? But I don't know, it didn't feel like he sort of deserved
okay.
to feel suicidal, which he does at some
Yeah.
point. I don't know, it
Yeah.
felt a bit like okay, why this
Yeah.
guy? I
Bing.
think-
Why Bill
Who
Murray?
saw, who saw
Yeah.
that coming?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think how they set him up, I think is quite interesting
Mm.
because they
Yeah.
do like he is just a grouchy guy, but like they
Yeah.
criticize him, and I think in most Bill Murray films they don't like criticize him for being grumpy. It's like, oh well, he's just a bit
Yeah.
grumpy.
Yeah.
But in
Yeah.
this, like the other characters don't like him, and they and they sort of call him out on it, and there's quite a
Yeah.
few sort of snide remarks about it, and so I think it's interesting because so he's sort of grumpy and not very nice, but then I think there is sort of the glimpses of humanity even quite early on. Like I was
Yeah.
thinking, like when he's sort of the third day around, when he's sort of starting to think about it, and he goes to the bar and he doesn't let the people drive. Like
Yeah.
that's actually like almost sort of out of character a little bit. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
almost like that there is a good person there, but he's just lost. Or he's
Yeah.
just
He just didn't want to die. He wasn't being nice. He's just like,
Yeah.
I don't want to die.
Well, I mean, he can walk back. He knows that he's going to
Yeah.
wake up the next morning back
Yeah.
back in bed. So I don't think
Maybe
it's
he
an
gets
Uber lift.
selected. Maybe he gets selected because the groundhog is the one with the powers, and he disses the groundhog so much in front of the groundhog. The groundhog's like, right, you're going to repeat this day endlessly. Enjoy.
Yeah. Phil,
I
you
don't-
mean?
Well,
Yeah, exactly. They're the best character. Yeah.
Yeah.
well, I mean,
Oh, wow.
there's so many theories about who God is. Is
Yeah.
Ned God? Because
wow.
actually, like, yeah,
Ned?
there's a
Ned?
Ned. Yeah.
Ned Ryerson.
Bing. and
You're gonna hate this, Natalie. You're really gonna hate this.
I've got to go.
Yeah. I'm afraid this goes on forever.
Yeah, there's a theory that the piano teacher is actually God, because
Really?
why does he go for piano lessons on the last day when she's like, oh, that's my student, but he can clearly play the piano, and you're like, but yeah, okay, that's a
Would
bit of a plot
God
hole, I think.
push out a child through playing piano, or would God just create a second piano?
Wait,
That
what?
would be my question. Well, if she pushes out her young student, and says, yeah,
Well,
come
I
in.
mean, yeah,
I think you'd
because
have two pianos and teach them both at the same time because you're God.
I mean, she could have just said, "Come back in an hour." Right? It
Yeah.
doesn't really
Yeah.
need to.
Another option.
It
Yeah.
doesn't need to be tomorrow. But yeah, lots of theories about and I
Yeah.
like the fact that they don't explain it, that they're not. That they
Yeah,
don't
you
kind
can't
of,
over-explain it. So before we delve more into Natalie's side of this, I want to ask you, Andy, because I know you'd have looked at this. there's a lot of chat about how long he was in this world before he
Yeah.
finally gets out. So what was your sort of summation on all the information you looked at on how long you think roughly how long you think he's in there?
Yeah, I mean, roughly, I saw someone say 34 years, 350 days,
Yeah.
just roughly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I heard
I
about
think
30 years.
it's got to be like, yeah, it's got to be over 10 years. I think the director said that he thought it would be 10 years, and then everyone
Yeah.
was like, oh, but if he's learning French and he's learning piano,
Yeah.
he makes
And
he
ice
makes a quip
sculpting.
about, yeah, which he must have had to teach himself. I think that's one of the interesting things. It's like, obviously you're stuck in the small town, so
Yeah.
like within the confines of the story,
Yeah.
you can't do anything that's not in the small town. So presumably,
Yeah.
like, well, I guess there were other people ice sculpting. I think there were. So maybe he asked one of them
yeah.
to
Yeah.
teach him.
There's also a
But
couple
like,
that calls him doctor, isn't there? And he's like, oh,
yeah,
not really, but he helped a guy's back, didn't he, or something? So it's a bit
Yeah,
like, that would
yeah.
have been like 4 years of training or
Yeah.
something.
it just
Yeah.
cracks his back. But
So
well,
I
he would have
feel
had all
like-
of the records from the hospital who were just fine with him looking at people's
Yeah.
charts. When the guy dies, I just don't know why he's like, just show me his charts. You're just a bit like, why?
Yeah.
You're just you're with a man. Like, are the chart's going to mean anything to you?
He knows exactly what he's doing. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the thing. If it's between 10 to 30 years, I think for me that, like, to your point, Natalie, of whether he's the right person to be selected to be in Groundhog Day, I think I could see how you would definitely get suicidal though. If you were there over 10 years, I'd be like, God, can you imagine? And you're just stuck in Gobbler's Knob, which just had to get that in there because I forgot about that every time I've watched it.
It's real place.
Unbelievable.
It's actually where it's based.
Oh my God, that's ridiculous. But yeah, it would be crazy,
Yeah.
wouldn't it? Like,
Yeah.
God, it would be. I do think they do that well in the story. I think they take his whether he's the right person to be chosen, obviously, it's up for debate. But I think they take his character through the right things. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, actually, he suddenly realizes he can do anything. He's like, great, what am I going to do? I can do anything. Then you realize you can eat anything. You're like, oh, excellent. I'm going to go and do this and order everything. Then you think that you can learn everything. But then, yeah, you get to the point where you're like, actually, this is actually a bit annoying now. I don't really want to be here anymore. Can we stop this? Can we change it? But yeah, I mean, and then there's almost and then acceptance at the end of this has to be my life. I just have to keep doing this because this is where I am. There's nothing I can do. And then that's obviously then how he eventually gets out of it. But yeah, I feel like it takes you on a journey.
Yeah, definitely. I do agree with that. Yeah.
Mirroring the 5 stages of grief is obviously what it's right. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. So
someone's done some research.
That he goes through. I mean, there's so much research. Like that's the thing. Like there's so many sort of, I think pretty much every sort of major religion has a take on this as being like part of them. Is it Buddhist? Is he getting out of the cycle of reincarnation? Why does he do good things if he knows that every day it's just going to be reset and that it's not going to actually matter that he's done good things?
Have to, right? Because imagine if one day you woke up and you didn't, and you let that kid fall out of the tree and die, you'd be like, oh, no, I really should have saved that kid.
That's like one of the most interesting things for me is that, like, at what point do you think you would be like, okay, yeah, the time's repeating, so therefore I can do anything I like? Because he does it after 3 days. And I think I would need a bit more convincing that it wasn't just a bit of a hiccup and all of a sudden on the 4th day you're going to go on. But he's like, oh, well, this must mean that this is going to happen forever. For me, that's a bit quick. I'm a bit like, I would probably need a few more days before I'm like, I can do whatever I want.
I think I'd just assume I was having a mental breakdown for a really long time.
Yeah,
that's
then
true.
it would
you would think that.
Yeah. I mean, he does, but not for very long.
Yeah, it's quite funny when he goes to psychiatrist and he's like, well, why don't you come back tomorrow?
Maybe not.
But that's but that's the thing. Like, he is doing good for no reward. Essentially.
Well, I guess he's thinking that doing good is going to be his salvation, right? That's how he's going to get out of it. And I guess Yeah, and I guess it's interesting. It's kind of what I guess what religion is in a way, isn't it? That you kind of, you know, you feel like you're doing some good, and therefore, I don't know, you continue doing it because you just think, oh, well, this is actually something that's doing good, and this is what's something it's giving me my purpose, right? And I guess maybe every day he gets up, he thinks, oh, well, it's 10 past 10. I better go and save that kid. Otherwise, he'd be like, oh my God, it's 10 past 10 again on the same day, and I can't kill myself. So what am I going to do? So I guess it takes you away maybe from the reality of life. Maybe that's
but almost with religion, you to a certain extent, this is not the Twitter spat for this episode, but like you're doing good for reward later on in like the afterlife or like other times, whereas he doesn't have that, right? There was no future, so it's like he's just doing good for good's sake, which
some might argue there's no afterlife, so any good we're doing now is good for now, so
and he basically lives without fear, and that almost this is what you're capable of. If you live without fear, then you can do all of these things because he doesn't have fear of the consequences of tomorrow.
Yeah, well, that's the good thing, isn't it? Because then that he realizes he can eat whatever he wants, he can do whatever he wants because he steals the money, he can drink whatever he wants. All of a sudden he's like, party town, let's go, let's see what Gobbler's Knob has got available.
But eventually,
not a great deal.
But eventually he spends his time but improving himself, learning French. There's a really nice
whoa.
I think.
Then are you just saying those two sentences together? Or are they two separate sentences? He was improving himself, and on a side note, he also happened to be learning French.
It's very useful, just in the little town.
For now, with the Parisians.
But like,
and the
I think there's a really nice scene where he's just reading in the cafe, and I think he's reading one of the poetry books, and he's just having a coffee, and he just sort of looks up, and he just looks around and smiles. And I think that they do it really well, where he does just seem like content, and he's not doing anything crazy. And I think I do think that he does that well. Is like at the beginning, it's like it's playing it for kicks and stuff. And I think this is quite famous that he fell out with Ivan Reitman on the film. And I think that was the thing. I think the director wanted it to be like the evolution of the journey for the character, and maybe Bill Murray was more interested in just kind of the gags and you do this and you do that. But it just I love that bit where after everything that he's done and after all of the like stuff and a lot of the comedy, he then just sort of sits there and is just quite content. And I think that shows the character on that journey, where also then there is a lot of comedy in it as well, but I think that's why it's just that little bit elevated. I know that we have had criticism for the show about not thinking that any comedies are actually funny.
Well, it can happen. Well, I feel now, we've made it sound so good. Come in, Natalie. You need to tell us what makes this film terrible. Let's balance this out.
I mean, I didn't hate it. I do think that the sort of journey was clear. I love a montage, seeing all the things that he was doing and, what thinking about what would I do if I had like an endless amount of days. I would also probably learn French and the piano and stuff like that. So I didn't hate it, but I think the main thing, well, it felt to me watching it, the main thing wasn't entirely just about his journey and learning to be a better person and that kind of discovery. It still ended up that he wanted to be with Andy McDowell's character. And it was just a bit like, I take that away. Like, just make it about him. I don't mind it being just about him. And I think the bit that I didn't like was that there was this focus on her and there was no chemistry between them. I didn't think at all. So I just found it quite hard to watch.
That's a good point. You're right. Yeah. And this is actually, I remember that because we watched Brewster's Millions with you as well. And I'm just thinking, there's some similarities coming through here because they also had a pointless romance in that film.
Totally pointless. I think it's completely pointless, especially because like, I find her character development a bit weird as well.
Yeah.
Because when you're like first introduced to her and she's like stood in front of the green screen or the blue screen and she's like, messing around with the camera, the impression I got was that she was this sort of like fun-loving, she's really happy. You can say anything to her without her like losing her smile, right? Like, 'cause even in the van over, he's being really grumpy and she's still got a smile on her face. And then I think it's like the first day where he realizes he's woken up and it's the same day again. It's either the first or second time. And he asks her to go to the cafe with him and he's having a bit of a meltdown. Yeah. And she's really mean to him. And it's like, wow. But like straight off the bat, it feels like she's really happy-go-lucky. Then she's really mean and she like hates him. Yeah. And then obviously for her, it's just the same day. Like she's not repeating anything. Yeah. But then somehow she falls in love with him in one day. Like it just didn't. I think if their chemistry had been amazing, I could be like, yeah, they'd fall in love in a day. But it's nothing, I think.
Yeah, it's a good point, actually. You're right. He could have just come out of the cycle just from all the good that he'd done. He gets to the ball at the end, and literally everyone that's there, he's helped. And I guess he could just go to sleep at the end with like a smile on his face and then wake up the next day. It doesn't really need to be that she's like, oh, I'm gonna, because I guess then doesn't necessarily set up the best things from a film of, well, whatever happens, even if she says no, just keep going on.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I think if he'd woken up and it was like he'd done it all himself and he got himself out of this mess and that it's a new day, even if it had ended with him just being like, shall we get a coffee, like even that would have been better, I think. But the fact that like she went to his and like slept at his and then it was the next day, it's just a bit like, it feels a bit lazy to me.
It's a good point. Andy, thoughts on that? Back to you.
Debate
number two.
I mean, there's a romance bit of this film. I didn't remember. I think that's where it becomes a rom com, and that's very much less interesting. And I think like the part where he's trying to seduce her and it doesn't work is kind of is almost the point that like, okay, you just can't do this. And then to have it like, I actually think that the sweetest one is actually, or the bit where they have the most chemistry is just the day they spend together. And like where he tells her what's going on and they're doing like the flicking the card and he just, she stays, but it's almost just like as a friendship and it's fine. And he sort of says, that he'd try and be worth it if he could have her and be in his life. And I think that and that's where the film kind of switches. But I completely agree. I'd almost if he woke up and then sort of walked outside and then bumped into her and was like a smile and said, should we get a coffee? I think I mean that's the difference between a 90s film and a films now, isn't it? Like, they have to spell it out a bit more in the 90s. We weren't as quick as the next generations.
I think as well, like I just he's not, I know this is completely subjective, but like he's not exactly a heartthrob either.
No. So I don't think that's subjective. I think that's universal.
That's the Twitter spat for this episode.
It's
all the Bill Murray lovers.
I think that scene, and I know it's supposed to show that he didn't have he wasn't in a good place when he's like trying to convince her to stay over and she keeps saying stop and he keeps kissing her. Like it's really uncomfortable to watch. And I just think, again, maybe there's that sort of lack of chemistry element there that makes it even more squeamish to watch. But like, I don't know. I just feel like there's always that element in a lot of movies, especially around the sort of 80s. And I just think like, just wish it wasn't there.
It doesn't need it. You're right. It's something I've not really thought about before, but you're right. It really doesn't. In the bulk of the middle part of the film, she's not even in it at all. And that's just his journey. And you're right.
Exactly.
And she really is only in at the start and at the end. She could probably just be a side character like the cameraman. It doesn't really need to be.
And I think it's one of those things where it's like, was this written in for like the ego of Bill Murray? Like I don't know what his sort of status was at the time, but like was it sort of shoehorned into a story because it meant that he got to be with like this beautiful woman? Like was that a thing that happened? I've got no context, but
I'd imagine it's just the 90s, right? It's just
I think it's just the way
every 90s film
to sell the movie. Every movie was a rom-com, whether it was more of a comedy or not. So I do think and I think like it is interesting what you say about like her character and her character development, because almost like her character, there should be no character development with her.
Right, yeah.
Like that's almost sort of the difficulty with it. And there sort of there isn't, but there is, and it's sort of, yeah, it doesn't, because there's so much focus on her. Like was with the other characters, you can kind of have a throwaway line, and they can be like, oh yeah, that's true, and it sort of alludes to other time when he's got to know people better.
Yeah.
But like it's also, I mean, to go from the like blue screen and the like, and he says, oh, you know, you're the nicest person, and then like the fact that she says a toast of world peace when she has a drink, which is just like, why would you like anyone who says a prayer to world peace? Although again, when he then does it and says amen before drinking, it still makes me laugh. It's just it's just so ridiculous. So
yeah.
So in that sense, when do you think the reality kicks in for Andy and she realizes that he's just a big fat liar? Do you think, is it like, does he keep up the pretense in day 2 and it's still working well and he's like, I'm a changed man, and then eventually day 3 starts to wear off a little bit, and then day 5 he's like, oh, I'm just back to normal again?
Well, I think that's the bit that gets me as well, is it's a bit like, so apparently she's fallen in love with him in a day. Like, so then if that was me, if I was Andy McDowell, on day 2 I'd be like, that was quite rushed, wasn't it? That was quite fast. So I
did I have a lot to drink last night? Because I think I might have said something I didn't mean. Yeah.
Well,
the weird thing is,
that's why it's funny though when he says, "Oh, we should move here," and then he's like, "Well, we went to begin with," and it's like already he's like creeping back to, actually, shall we just stay here? I don't think so.
And the weird thing, it's going to be super weird because whether it's 10 years or 30 years, he knows so much about her, and he'll just keep saying stuff, and she'd be like, "What? How do you know that about me?" It will be
pre-internet
so
as well, so it's not like he could have just checked out her socials and stuff.
He's just like a proper stalker, the OG. Was there anything that you thought that dated it at all, other than obviously the terrible romance piece?
I think pretty much that romance, although I say that, but there's a lot of sort of dud romances around even today, so I don't know that that's necessarily I don't think that on its own dates it, but maybe the way that they did it. But I think the fact that like it could have been just a story about him, I think, and I think it could have been equally as funny and equally as interesting without her in it. Or without, like, just, as a side character. I don't think she needed to be like the end goal.
Yeah, true. Do you think this was better or worse than Bruce's Millions?
Oh, I think they're quite different. I do think, like,
they are. But if you have to watch one again and again and again, which one are you going for?
There was no explaining text on this one.
That is true. That is true.
Oh, I don't know.
Funnily enough, they both have dilemmas, right? The Bruce's Millions is, what would you do? How would we spend that volume of money? And then obviously this is like, what would you do if you had unlimited time? We're getting all the best movies for you, Natalie. Honestly, some of the track on this list, you wouldn't.
These are the big moral questions that
you get brought in for.
I'd probably watch Brewster's Millions again. I think the thing I had with Brewster's Millions is that I wanted it to be a slightly more daring comedy. I remember thinking it felt a bit more like family comedy than I had anticipated. I think that could have gone a bit bolder with the comedy. I remember thinking that at the time. But Groundhog Day. I think if it was on TV, I might be like, oh, but I don't know that I would have done.
Did Tom watch any of it?
Tom,
as a fellow Bill Murray hater,
Tom refused to watch it with me.
Right. We are refusing to play the theme song this week in protest.
I did say, I was like, I'll put it on. You can watch it in the morning with me. And he was like, no, he just couldn't bring himself to sit in and watch it with me.
Wow.
Okay. No, not interested.
Deep loathing of him. It's a very 90s film. I think it feels a very 90s film. I mean, it's not just them smoking in the restaurants.
I think Bill Murray's just quite polarizing. I think some people really love his comedy and some people don't. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. I did think, because I've been really unwell this week, I was thinking, imagine if he'd have just been unwell this day and he just kept repeating the same day of him being unwell. I'd be like, imagine how bad that would have been.
Yeah.
That would have been awful.
Yeah.
You just in like the hospital or something going, oh no, I'm here again. What has happened? Yeah, let's not do that.
No.
Anything else that you liked about it then, Andy?
Yeah, I still like the development. I still think there's just a couple of quieter moments that I think kind of elevate it a little bit more. I like on the last day when he like he kisses the guy like in the morning and he's like buongiorno, and then he like recites the poem and stuff, and then he leaves, and the guy's just like he just sort of stands a bit taller, and I think it's just that for me is like actually he just has a nice impact on all of the people in the end. It's kind of I think it's still does really well at the very beginning. He's sort of like, oh, it's a small town, nothing's going on, but like there's still, I don't know, 100,000 people there, and everyone is living their life, and everyone's got a story, and everyone's trying to do something. And so then when he interacts with them, and he just kind of makes their day and their life just a little bit nicer. Yeah, I think even without reward, I do think that like for me it's still just a really nice message of like, yeah, you know what, everyone's got their life, everyone's doing their thing, and actually like being aware of that and just trying to just not be a grumpy weatherman. That's actually my life motto. I've got that on my ankle as a tattoo. Don't be a grumpy weatherman.
I feel like, is there someone particularly that you know, Eddie, you want to send this message out to?
This is one weatherman.
This is coming from the heart. Yeah.
No, so that's why. I still like it.
I did think that. Yeah, I think you're right. Like I thought it. You know, the life becomes a story, doesn't it? Where he's just doing the same thing again and again. So everyone becomes like a character of like a book, and he's just watching every character like from A to B or like A to Z, or one, you know, front page to end page, because he's got that time. So he almost sees, oh, what is this person doing? Because it's just life just becomes like a book where he's just, or you know, a film where he's watching every single person as a character. And I do think that becomes very interesting when you're seeing that. I do think the development is very interesting of how he changes. And yeah, apart from, I think obviously the romance is probably a bit dated, but the rest of it I thought was pretty good. There are some good lines in it as well, some great gags in it, and some good,
and like at an hour and a half. I think like that's the thing. It's not a 2-hour movie. I think they move it along quite quickly. If there's a film, like from a film point of view, they move it along quite quickly. He accepts it quite quickly. They don't sort of they dwell again on sort of in the middle bit with the romance, probably a bit too long. It's probably like they don't need to show like so much of the next day where he's like really weird about the kids and stuff and like over the top. And I think that again is not the greatest scene in the world. Like, you know, I think I think it was just at the time it was like, well, there's got to be a romance, so the girls go to the cinema because that's all girls are interested in is a romance. I'm glad that there isn't as much of him kissing people as there could have been, because I don't want to see him kissing people. It's a bit like him and like Al Pacino. You're just like, I just don't want to see I just don't want to see you kissing people.
You don't want to see kissing.
So I think that's still that's still good. And then I think I mean it's funny when he sort of says about the suicides and stuff, and he's like, oh, I've been shot, I've been stabbed, and then he says I've been frozen. And so I think that's actually like, again, that's just like, it's a throwaway line, but it's like he has been so bored that he's just like sat outside and almost like let himself die from being frozen, which is quite extreme. And I think does like, it's sort of, if you do have all of that time.
Exactly.
Like
what
that,
do you do?
Like the glass half empty, half full as the guy in the bar.
Imagine if it had been during COVID and everyone's just indoors and you're like, oh, this is a
Well, it's
nightmare.
funny, on one of the podcasts I was listening to, they sort of said, oh, you know, it's sort of, they came into the film thinking that it was going to be a COVID film, because everyone was kind of, oh, during COVID it's very Groundhog Day. But he was like, but the amount of people and like the fact there's so many crowd scenes, he was like, actually it was quite jarring and felt very un-COVID because there were so many people in all of the scenes. So
definitely not. How did you guys describe it to the aliens? What was what did you go for here, Natalie?
Mine's quite simple. Unhappy man learns how to find happiness in everyday life.
Wow. You bypassed the repeated day completely, just gone You know.
Well, I know. I thought I'd like
Surprise.
lure them in, and then they'd be like,
yeah.
"Ugh."
I don't know if that's lured me in. I'm not sure I want to watch that film.
Oh no, okay, maybe it's not exciting enough.
I think that's what Natalie's trying to do.
Yeah, that was my
Maybe skip this
intention.
one, aliens. Just
Go straight to Scrooge.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I had give a man an infinite amount of time, and he'll waste pretty much 9/10 of it.
Well, the ice sculpting wasn't a good lesson to learn. It is true. He does only learn French. I mean, there are a lot of languages.
Yeah.
But he's learned the French poetry to like try and seduce Andy McDowell. But then like he knows enough of it, and he's reading it later on, and then he quotes it to someone, and I don't know. Like that's the thing, isn't it? Like he's doing all of these stuff for bad reasons, but actually it does change him. I still like that.
I guess
He is a scumbag.
Is he?
But
is
then
he
actually, like,
now?
does he become less of a scumbag because actually he widens his view a little bit more?
Yeah.
I think I think that's what it wants to say. Definitely.
That's what we'll tell the aliens. He's a scumbag, exactly. And basically becomes less of a scumbag.
On the scale of scumbaggery, he's he improves.
What did you have, Kev?
I put animals predict the weather. If you disagree, you go to purgatory until you repent. That was my idea.
Nice. Again, I'm not sure the aliens are cracking that one open too early.
Well, when they only have 100 movies and they've got your list, they're like, oh, is it this one? Are we sure we want to watch this one? I've heard the Bruce's Millions is better. Put that on again.
So what would you change? Would you change like a genre, or I mean, obviously, Natalie, you'd change Bill Murray. Who would you rather see? Who do you think would be a good Phil Connors? Like whether in the 90s or whether now.
Would
in the 90s would Johnny Depp be better? I don't know.
No.
90s Johnny Depp, not like 2000s Johnny Depp.
I don't know that his comedy chops were like honed enough in the 90s.
No. What about Steve Carell, someone like that? I feel like he could be good in it. He's not sleazy.
Yeah.
He does quite good like angry voices, doesn't he?
Is he the new Bill Murray?
No, I like.
He's quite grumpy and
I don't think he's as grumpy as Bill Murray. I would say.
I do not think he's quite good. Do you not think he's got like the grumpy?
No, I feel like Bill Murray is actually grumpy. Whereas I don't feel that with Steve Carell.
He's an actor.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, no, that's a good. It's a good.
Who did you have?
Steve Carell. No, I wondered about like trying to get a song number in there. I think that would have been funny. I think if I had infinite amount of time, I would try and get some sort of flash mob. Dancing. Just to get everyone doing something. I think it would be just quite funny.
Yeah, that would have been good. Yeah, I don't think there was much else that. It's hard to think about. Like, definitely, I don't think you could change the genre really, other than, as we've always said, basically comedies just become horrors. That's the only option.
It's the easy option. I did think about that though, because I did think it would be interesting to do that, but as like a period drama, not a period drama, but like in a different time. Like, can you imagine if like the Jane Austen era? Like, what would you do? How different would it be? So I thought about that, but it's funny you say that because there is a horror film called Triangle. And it's a similar thing. It's the woman's she's on a boat, I think, like a cruise ship, and she gets stuck in this time loop where people are dying, obviously, because it's a horror. But it's a long time ago since I last watched it. But basically, she realizes that she's repeating herself. The difference, though, between her and Groundhog Day is that the evidence of her previous choices is left behind. So if she sees someone die, for example, the next time she comes round, that body will be there. So she kind of has those like traces left behind of things that are happening. And it's actually really good. It was quite a small budget film, but the concept is quite similar, where she's trying to get out of this cycle, and every time she makes a choice, that leads to her having to start again, and then she knows she doesn't make that choice again.
Does Andy McDowell pop up and get him out of the cycle?
She's the captain of the ship.
Yeah, okay. She's like, you just needed to come and give me a kiss, and that would have been it. Did you know?
She's on a desert island that they crash into. I mean, there's so many films that
have repeated the genre. So, yeah, is this the best one of those? Yeah, not sure, but like, yeah, there's I think pretty much every genre has like a Groundhog Day version of it.
It's probably.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
So do you think it would be better or worse if it came out today?
I think it's a pretty solid comedy. Like, I think the idea of someone sort of being trapped in a day and trying to be like, trying to figure out what's going on. I mean, it's a pretty horrifying concept on its own, but I think it's easy to add comedy to. So I think, if it was sort of modernized a bit and
Bill Murray wasn't in it.
And Bill Murray wasn't in it. I think it's a pretty solid like way of building a comedy. Definitely,
it's a great premise. Yeah, it's still a strong premise. I mean, was it not Spring Break? Palm Springs did it. The Netflix movie with Adam Sandler. They did it a couple of years ago, and
is that what I never saw it? I didn't realize that it was the same sort of.
Yeah, but like there's two of them, so it almost like they've gone, okay, well, what if Andy McDowell was in the time loop as well? And then there's also like a third person who's really annoyed at being in it, so he just comes along and kills him every now and again just to like vent his anger.
Nice.
So yeah.
They did Russian Doll as well. That was a TV series, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Where same sort of thing. Yeah.
And there may be another film on the list with the similar concept as well. So you say about the lines earlier, Kev. What were your favorite lines?
Oh, there were some great ones, weren't there? And he does deliver them well. I mean, obviously, Bing's definitely up there. Watch out for the first step. It's a doozy. I mean, these are all great ones.
That's because he's God. He's saying, watch out for the first step on your path to enlightenment.
Yeah. I mean, maybe definitely more so than the piano teacher. I'd buy. There's a point
when you rewatch it, thinking that Ned is God, it does actually really change the movie.
Okay. I might have to watch it to see him as God. There's a point someone says to him, "You go into the groundhog dinner," and he said, "Oh no, I had a groundhog for lunch." And I thought that was quite good. But yeah, it was just some absolute. He delivers them really, really well. He's very deadpan. I think his delivery is great. What about you, Andy? Do you have any good ones?
I think there's a lot of them. I think it's funny when she says, "I like to see a man of advancing years throw caution to the wind. It's inspiring in a way." I was like, "Is it?" I don't think it is. It's like what? I mean, a little bit of the horror when you go into hospital and then the nurse is just like, "Well, he just died. He was old. Sometimes people just die." You're like, that's the worst medical advice of all time.
Happens sometimes.
Yeah. When she says, "You can't love me because you only love yourself," and he says, "That's not true. I don't even like myself." I think that's a good line. Yeah. When he's describing it, he says, "You like boats but not the ocean." That's one of the weirdest lines ever. You like boats but not the ocean. What do you mean? You like lakes? Or do you not like water, but you like boats?
Canals?
Yeah, exactly. Like other water bodies, but how did that come out? I think it's quite funny when he says to the guy when they're drunk, "You want to throw up here or in the car?" And he's like, I think both.
The "don't drive angry" line when he's got
to the ground talking to Phil.
The ground, yeah.
Did you have any other good ones, Natalie?
No, I mean, everything Andrew said, but the sort of one-liners didn't sort of stick with me, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I didn't. Oh,
I'm so sorry.
I've killed myself so many times I don't even exist anymore. I mean, there's levels. You need to watch this a good 6 or 7 more times.
And make sure that Tom watches it this time. We're on the picket lines until he watches it.
I'll tell him.
What about the reviews then, Andy?
Yeah, the reviews were mixed, as you'd imagine, and also just some completely bizarre one. Someone said, although the teeth are good, they're not the sort of paper white that we've grown accustomed to in American films, the sort that all of us in Britain admire.
What on earth is that? Yeah.
Wow.
Can you pass that on to the police, please? That sounds like a serial killer.
Crikey.
I feel like you wrote this review, Kev. I was not too keen on the film. It was not how I remembered it. Perhaps I was confusing it with another title. So
it sounds like me.
You've forgotten that you've left a review. Bought this as so many people raved about it. worth a watch, but not one I'd rave about.
Oh,
Wow. These are actually
That was
good,
written by me.
solid 3-star reviews.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just all the other people are raving about it, but I think one of the nicest one. My husband's favorite movie, so I ordered it for his birthday. DVD will not play on all of our players. Notice that it feels thinner than other DVDs. It will play on one brackets newest, so decided
Wow.
not to return it.
that's
And then
amazing.
as a follow up, another one. I did not particularly care for this movie, but my husband loves it. Therefore, I watch it from time to time with him. If it makes him happy, I'm happy.
Oh, that's quite nice.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just nice. I just think
Yeah.
it's and then
Yeah.
one I think that is particularly inappropriate or just I'm surprised they didn't like the film more. It says some things they didn't like. The philosophical message I thought it wasn't as good, but still mildly enjoyable. Murray does wry humor very well, but Andy seems a little old for him.
Oh,
What?
goodness me.
That's weird. He's
That went
42.
downhill in the last bit of that review.
Yeah. He's in I'll check this to see how old they were. He's 42 when this is filmed and she's 35. So I don't know
That's not
what
bad.
age range
Yeah.
that guy's going for.
For a
It's
Hollywood-
bad. Yeah, it's bad that's not bad.
Yeah,
But-
exactly. For a Hollywood age difference,
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's not bad at all, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
But,
and then there was a very long rant about the fact that the review was not for the 4K UHD release, but for the
Bad
DVD and Blu-ray, and that they want to know whether it's a good transfer or not. I feel like it's Groundhog Day. I don't think you need it in 4K UHD. I'm just
No,
gonna
I
go
agree with
ahead and say, you know
No.
what? It's
Yeah.
I don't think you need it. So
If you were tell
yeah,
them.
exactly. Yeah. Just don't watch it in 4K UHD.
Yeah.
It's not going to bring.
Yeah.
You really
Yeah.
see the light on the groundhog's coat. It's it's
You
You
amazing.
should
Brilliant.
you should blow their mind and say, well, actually, turns out your eye can't even see any difference at that level. So this is all complete waste of your money. You don't even need really get into them.
Just you can make up on their faces. It's not good. So for the algo, what did you have? We can't go just for other time loop movies. I'm
No.
going to disqualify
Oh, yes,
those.
we can.
Andrew, but I only have time loop movies. No, well,
Yeah. I thought you were going to say there had to be time loop movies. So that's the only ones I thought of.
You can't put
Come
the
on, Andy.
caveat in after we've watched the movie. I mean, I did put Scrooged because it's
Yeah.
the same. He's like
Yeah.
a grumpy old guy, has to learn a lesson, blah, blah, blah. Like,
Yeah.
it's the same. And then
Yeah.
I put Triangle, time loop movie,
Yeah, nice.
different genre, same sort of idea.
Like it.
Yeah.
Yep. I went for Happy Death Day just to keep the
Oh, yeah.
horror element going.
Question: if you then someone else based on this podcast, this other podcast I was listening to, that like
Yeah.
at what stage would you go full purge if you knew that there was
Yeah.
no consequences? At what stage are you just
Never.
like doing GTA and you're going around killing everyone? Obviously, you'd always be a bit worried that would be the one that would stick.
Yes, exactly.
But like, if you could guarantee it, no consequences. Obviously, like there is that question: when would someone just go completely crazy and start killing?
Can you please also report these people? Like, there should be no point in your life, regardless if the same day is repeated or not. You should want to kill other humans. Go into prison and stay there.
They wasn't. I thought that was just.
Oh, nice. I also went through a couple of other ones. Edge of Tomorrow, which I thought is very similar. We won't mention that too much, Andy. And then I just thought, for you, Andy, I'd put in Highlander. I thought, it's another solitary life. He can never die, but he does. But days do change. So same, but different. Maybe.
Yeah, but like film wise, like very different. Concept wise, maybe similar, but film wise. So the algo went way more for sort of vibe. So they went for Invention of Lying, Yes Man, Free Guy,
Yeah, okay.
Bruce Almighty, Stranger
Yeah.
Than Fiction.
Yeah.
I don't know if I like that.
I think the algo got the vibe more
No.
for me than Highlander. If you were saying to someone, I quite like Groundhog Day, what else should I watch? Oh, you probably enjoy Highlander then.
Well,
I'm
you
not
should
sure.
also watch Highlander if you've not seen it, because it's a great film.
Season
Flying.
2. Season
Invented
2.
Flying, I agree with. I
Yeah.
can see
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
definitely.
And Stranger Than Fiction, because it's kind of that little bit sort of
Yeah.
meta. It's Will Ferrell, and it's actually quite good. It's got one of my favorite thing when he's trying to date someone who's a baker, and he says, "I've bought you some flowers,"
Yeah.
and it's all different types of flower.
Yeah, I
think
love
that's
that
still
too.
that's still one of the good lines. So I'm giving that to the Algo, principally because of Highlander.
Good one,
Oh,
Kev.
I threw that in there just for you. I wasn't even going to put it in.
That's the thing.
It's backfired.
The AI is so on it. It's not.
Well, is it because Andy, because there can be only one, that I would be chopping your head off.
I know you would try.
And so it begins. But yeah. All right, so it's number 58 then. You've rewatched it. Where does it go on the list now?
Yeah, I think it can drop down a little bit. I do think there's depth to it. I still liked it. The romance stuff is not good, and just it does feel a bit unnecessary. So I dropped it down to number 67, which was an open slot, just below obviously one of the all-time great romances in Princess Bride, and just above Color of Money, which also has a weird romance in it.
Quite low for Princess Bride, I think.
Yeah,
66. Well, 66. Okay. Wow.
I know it's not my list.
Season 3. You'll be.
I feel quite offended that it's that low.
You should do. You should feel offended about the whole list. Wait
You only have to come in every now and again.
Yeah, exactly.
Kev's in the shop day in, day out.
Yeah, this is Groundhog Day for me.
Yeah. Where did you have it, Kev?
I had it high. I went, and now I feel bad about it. But I went.
Let other people influence you.
Yeah.
That's the entire point of the film.
No, I really like the journey. I think previously watching it, I think it's always one of those films that was always on, and you kind of had it on in the background. But I think really sitting down and watching it and seeing the journey that he sort of goes on of, like you said, those sort of different feelings and emotions he feels, and how he's like really trying to improve himself. Then it's just too much and he's had enough. And then it's just acceptance. I thought those really came through for me in this viewing. So yeah, I did it at number 5 of 43.
Wow.
Yeah, high. So just below Crazy Stupid Love and above Kubo and the Two Strings. There you go. Bombshell.
Wow. Bombshell.
I'm devastated.
That's good. Yeah. I think it's got legs. I still enjoyed it. I've watched it 100 odd times. Still enjoyed it. Still notice things that you don't notice that I'd never noticed before as well, which I think is always quite a good thing. Although one of those things was they committed suicide by being frozen, which was less good. But yeah. No. Oh, wow. Interesting. On that bombshell. Well, thank you, Natalie, for coming down to the shop and being forced to watch another movie that is a bit questionable.
Well, despite my criticism, I still enjoyed myself.
Good. Well, we'll get you a good film. There's bound to be one on the list.
Don't hold out too much hope.
It's gonna be a long year, if not, with as we're only on 58. For next week, the quote for next week: "Never get on the bad side of small-minded people who have a little authority." I think that's great advice. Yeah, no, it's I love this film. Although, well, no, we won't ruin it. We'll save that for the next pod. Thank you very much for coming down. Thanks, Kev. I want to just leave you with a quote that really summed up just my entire experience with this pod, and that is: no matter what happens now or for the rest of my life, I'm happy now.